time to fly.
Overall, you can see that this entire template is based around the concept of gain staging. Basically, within the channel rack itself, I gain stage with these knobs right here. I know some people like to use the automation knobs right here. This is for automation. That's why these are set in the middle to where you could automate lower or higher. It's specifically for automation. I asked ImageLine in the forums. They specifically said it's there for automation. Some people would use these to adjust further, but what I recommend is actually not using that at all and just using these knobs here, because that will it'll kind of safeguard you from making your beats too loud from the get-go. You'll notice that none of these are set to above 80%, so you're not getting your full volume. If you're using something like a layer, like sometimes I'll layer my kicks, I'll definitely do a tutorial on that. I know a lot of people don't layer their kicks anymore because a lot of these sound packs are freaking amazing where you don't have to make your own kicks. I mean, I grew up in the era of really bad drums. So I did a lot of layering and stuff back in the day. So there's a lot of cool tips and tricks, especially if you're trying to make your own sound packs, to where you can use layering to your advantage. People will tell you not to layer your kicks because you'll get phasing. Yeah, nowadays, with the type of kicks that we're getting in these sample packs, yeah, you probably are going to get some phasing because a lot of these kicks are beefy as all hell. So, but there's ways to avoid that, which I'll teach you guys. If you're using this layer, you're actually going to want to turn this all the way up, because if you had this set to 78% or 80% or whatever, all of these volumes, like say if I clone this, and I had this turned up, that turned down, and then I'm using this layer to control both, this isn't going to be playing the full volume of where I had these knobs turned up. So if I want to hear that kick drum exactly the same, I would have to turn this all the way up with the layer. Another tip that I would say is set the level on your sound card and leave it alone. You want to be able to reference all the music that you listen to on your sound card at the same level and get used to that. Here's what I would do. I would go to YouTube, go to your favorite producer, whoever has the clean, and when I say favorite producer, I mean mixes, the best mixes that you could possibly find, or find finished songs. Go to like Lyrical Lemonade, turn the volume all the way up on YouTube, and then set the monitor level on your sound card to where that level is comfortable for you, a level where you enjoy listening to that music. Anytime you go in to mixing and mastering, you know that that's what you're shooting for. And what you can do inside of FL Studio, what you'll end up noticing is that these volumes are really loud. So that will get you to turn these down. And then once they're in these individual inserts, you'll have all of these at unity gain. Now all you'll be doing is you'll just be doing incremental dips here and there to fine tune what you're listening to once you start adding things like saturation and the overall EQ on your buses. And if you add, any other additional effects, but basically every time you add an effect, turn that effect back down. So if I already use this boost here, it's going to make the overall sound louder. So you're going to want to turn that down so that the level is exactly the same as what you inputted in. Because basically, if you have all these mixed, balanced right in terms of levels, you won't have to do too much with these levels here. And the whole point of that, the lower you go down on this mixer, the less control you're going to have over these volumes. Because you can see down here, these numbers are just jumping around like crazy. But when you're up here, you're able to fine tune those numbers a lot better. And people say, well, hold control and adjust the levels. Well, they're still jumping around. This is me holding control, and those numbers are jumping around like crazy. So that's not going to do it for you. One trick that I like to do is just lower the volume of the overall instrumentation mix. Because sometimes, I just love the balance of all the instruments as is, but sometimes I find that I might have made all of those just in general too loud because I'm a guy that just loves instrumentation more than I love drums. So what I'll do is just back off the volume of the instruments just a little bit and see if the drums start popping out a little bit more. I'd say half the time they end up my mix ends up benefiting from just turning down the volume on the instrument bus just a little bit, and that's going to help with a cleaner master as well. Another thing that you might do is once you master or limit your beat, then go back in and fine-tune adjust the individual volumes. You might hear one instrument poking out just a little bit too much. You might hear a frequency poking out just a little bit too much. That's when you would go back and adjust maybe this high end a little bit more, maybe cut this a little bit more, maybe sweep this down a little bit further or up a little bit further. Maybe you just needed a little bit of bass boost, and maybe that sounds good to you. Narrow that Q a little bit so you're really only affecting that bass area. That's another tip. If you're boosting and EQing your master, that's when you want to use more narrow boosts and cuts. People always tell you to boost wide when you're EQing. Well, not on a master. On a master, if you boost wide, you're going to be affecting a lot of the different instruments, and that's okay too. It's going to sound a little bit more natural, but I would say just in general, a little bit more of a narrow boost might actually benefit you more if you're trying to zero in on just a more specific frequency, because you're messing with the overall mix. And that's when people will tell you, well, if you're just trying to boost the snare area, just go in and boost that snare. True. But sometimes you might find a little bit more of a pleasant sound by boosting that area in general, because at that point you not only have a snare, you have a rim shot, you have a ghost snare, you have a clap, you have maybe some other percussive elements that are in that area that would all benefit from just a nice little boost within that area. And that's when those little EQ boosts would come in. And then also remember to turn the mix back down so that you're not just making things louder and making yourself think that it's sounding better when it's really just louder and not better. I think one other thing that I want to say about gain staging, so none of these individual tracks will ever hit above 0. Another thing that I'll make sure is that none of them are hitting 0. None of these buses are hitting 0. And then those buses combined aren't hitting 0 in the mix bus. So, but one thing that you'll notice is that as you're mixing, you might be hitting 0 on that overall mix bus because of the overall levels of everything. So what I end up doing before I start adding effects on these buses and whatnot, I make sure that I get this mix bus level down below 0. So I'll go ahead and highlight. I'll go ahead and highlight all these tracks, and I'll just bring them down after I've leveled them the way that I want. And I'll just bring them down to where this mix bus is hitting below 0, like -3, -6, whatever. All of those tips will help you with having a cleaner master. That will avoid any issues with quote unquote headroom. There's all different ways to go about it, but it all really comes down to you using your ears and using logic, just doing what makes sense. Fine-tuning your monitoring system to where you're using the same levels every time when you're listening back so that you know when something is too loud or not. If you keep changing your volume knob, you're never going to figure out what initially sounds too loud to you and what doesn't. But yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below if you have any questions, and I will see you guys in the next one. Subscribe if you haven't already. Take care. Peace.